This is day 8. It is the review for the essay test for industrial nationalism. The first topic for the review is what were some economic reasons for the colonies in Africa? In this unit, we talked about sub-Saharan Africa only. We talked about the Congo Free State here, which was a Belgian colony. We talked about the British and their interactions with the Zulus here, the Zulu War. And we talked about German Southwest Africa here, where the German military interacted with the Herero and Nama people. So these are some pictures that are from all of the slides we've talked about already. What are the economic reasons for the colonies in Africa? Economic reasons, economic benefits that Europeans got from the colonies in Africa include land. And in terms of the land, we talk about the plants in terms of rubber, the animals, ivory, the minerals, resources like gold and diamonds and iron and coal that come out of the ground. The land itself, in the case of Southwest Africa, for farmland or for pasturage. Economics also gets at the idea of labor. The people of Africa themselves were part of the economics. People like porters who were forced into doing labor for free in the Belgian Congo. People like these hostages taken by the Force Publique, who were held hostage while their family members were sent out to search for rubber for free. And the economic system that eventually led to the many severed hands in the Congo, where incentives were set up to make soldiers chop off the hands of innocent people as part of the rubber terror hierarchy. Soldiers were sent out to punish people who weren't finding rubber, and a perverse economy in severed hands grew up, so that literally the bodies of African people themselves had an economic dollar value. All of this connects back to the economics of industrial Europe. All of these products, all of these things go back to Europe itself. The free labor transporting things from the land, from the minerals, from the animals, and from the plants of Africa, and the labor itself as part of the economic exchange, forced labor, labor that was unpaid. It was not slave labor technically, but it was unpaid, coerced, and forced. Your sentence frame for this is some economic reasons for the colonies in Africa were, list and explain how they are connected to each other. The second question is, what are some examples of industrial technology that impacted colonies in sub-Saharan Africa? These are some pictures of industrialized technology that we have discussed in terms of sub-Saharan Africa. Firstly, we have interchangeable parts, things like the interchangeable parts for rifles and its inevitable development into things like the Gatling gun for massive military power over the African people. In the case of the Gatling gun, we're talking about the British using it against the Zulu. And in the case of a different piece of technology, railroads, steam engines with their equally interchangeable parts, enabled people like the Belgians in the Congo to build railroads deep into the rainforest to transport products, people, resources, plants, animals in and out efficiently and for profit. Similarly, the industrial technology of steamboats enabled travel up and down rivers such as the Congo and up and down the coasts of other places in Africa. Steamboats were used to get resources in and out of the Congo, resources like rubber and animals and human bodies. This piece of industrial technology is perhaps one of the most confusing for students, the bicycle with pneumatic rubber tires, similarly to automobiles with pneumatic rubber tires, actually were inventions that affected Europe and America greatly, and they spurred demand for rubber for the tires. Rubber, of course, coming from especially places like the Belgian Congo. The invention of technology in one place, say in Europe, and the adoption of things like bicycles led to increased demand for rubber, which then led to increase use of the technology of railroads and steam engines to get into deeper and deeper into the Congo to get rubber for the markets of Europe. All these different industrialized technologies enabled Europeans to conquer, to dominate, and to control the people of Africa. Railroads could move resources and money. They could move rubber and ivory in and out of places, but they also, more dangerously, could move individuals, army, military, weapons, ammunition, repairing parts, and things like that, deeper and deeper into the continent. The starter sentence for this is some examples of ways industrial technology impacted colonies in Africa are, and you have many to choose from. Question number 3. What were some nationalist reasons for the colonies in Africa? So nationalism is pride in your nationality, and your nationality has to do with the country you are from. It's important to point out that nationalism is not the same thing as racism. A person can be any race and be part of a nation, but nationalism has to do with pride in one's nation. Similarly, nationalities, like in the case of this guy here and this lady here, British nationality, is different from the nationality of this lady here who is representing France. French nationality versus British nationality versus German nationality versus Belgian nationality. The different nationalities of Europe led the Europeans to compete with each other. They were fighting each other for pieces and resources in places in sub-Saharan Africa. They were showing off to each other in cases of things like the Great Exhibition in the Crystal Palace in London, where the British showed off all the things they got from India and China and Africa. You also see this nationalism in the Berlin Conference here, where European men from different nationalities, leaders of different countries, met in Berlin to divide up the continent of Africa. And these different nationalities competed with each other in discussion in the conference to see who got what. Nationalism was so strong, the people at this meeting did not even consider the Black African people in this whole debate. They only considered their competition with each other. Even in these pictures, you can see there's some Black Africans here, probably Algerian, given that this is a French lady. We have a Black African here, probably supposed to be Zulu, based on the fact that this lady is supposed to be British, and he's got a spear and shield here. These Black Africans are at the bottom of the pictures, crouching down low, similar to these Indian sepoy soldiers from the Indian part of the empire. Nationalism being that the nation of Britain, the nation of France, the mother country, the fatherland of Germany, of Belgium, etc., is the most important thing. Some nationalist reasons for the colonies in Africa were, and I think you can focus mostly on the Berlin Conference here. This brings us to the last and perhaps most important part, pseudo-scientific racist justifications for the colonies in sub-Saharan Africa. And clearly, since we're only talking about 3 colonies in this class, British South Africa, Congo Free State, and German Southwest Africa, there's a lot more you could say about this, but I think there's plenty for us to talk about here. Pseudo-scientific racism has to do with pseudoscience, pseudo being fake. So this is fake information masquerading as science, and it's people using the credibility of science to justify racist beliefs. The place where we probably should start is with this famous picture of 3 skulls, supposedly depicting Europeans, and at the bottom, apes, monkeys, and in the middle, allegedly, the Black African being the so-called missing link between the apes and the humans. This is a form of pseudoscience. There is no actual evidence that this is the case. The evidence that was given for this, skulls that were presented in Europe, things that were illustrated like this in newspapers and books, were largely either invented or were amalgamations, combinations of, say, a monkey jaw glued onto a human skull or something like that, to try to make it appear as though Black Africans were something less than fully human, something between apes and people. It is, again, pseudoscience. It is 100% fake, and it is not actually scientific. It is lies told with the illusion of science. Along those lines, over here in German Southwest Africa, this image shows German soldiers packing skulls of Herero people into a box for shipment back to Europe to be supposedly scientifically studied to help prove that the Africans are something below human, that they are Untermensch, that they are subhuman. We also have this piece of propaganda in the middle, which could have appeared on the previous slide with nationalist propaganda. However, since it has to do with racism and it has to do with this pseudo lie that makes Africans into something less than human, I put it here. This is happening on a German farm. You can see part of the caption here at the bottom. And this is a piece of propaganda about Herero people allegedly attacking innocent German farm women and children. The thing that makes this a lie is that the Herero never attacked civilian Germans. They never attacked German farmers. In fact, the reverse is true. German military attacked plenty of Herero farmers and Herero women and children and civilians. So this piece of propaganda is fake news, fake truth, as well as projection. Additionally, the Herero people did not dress like this. This was another piece of racism to try to make the Hereros seem less civilized, less human, less advanced. There's a lot that can be said about pseudoscientific racism, but along those lines of treating Black Africans as less than human or lesser than European humans, we have the images here of some children from the Congo whose hands have been chopped off. And I want to remind you to look back to the quote about people in the Congo and how they described themselves to missionaries. And they said that the force publique and the military and the Belgian agents treated them as meat, as nyama, as something less than meat. And we want to remember that human bodies and the severed hands of people in the Congo were used as almost literally currency. This picture over here has to do with that same thing. Literally the bodies of the Black Africans living in the Congo were being suffocated and killed like animals in the forest. And that brings us to our last piece, which is this image over here that we saw at the very beginning of this unit. White men, white explorers, white missionaries, European men, and we say white advisedly because we're talking about racism here, European men traveling to sub-Saharan Africa treated their Black, because we're talking about racism here, porters as something akin to, or even worse than, someone might treat a donkey or a horse. And you have here these two Black men carrying a white man in a hammock through wherever it is he's going, so he doesn't have to get his feet muddy. And he also has a little shelter over him, which he can pull over and maybe avoid the bugs, avoid the mosquitoes or whatnot. So this pseudo-scientific racism, we're talking about racism, but we're also talking about the lies and the pretend science that was used to justify the behavior of the white people who came to the colonies. So here's your sentence frame. Some pseudo-scientific racist justifications for colonies in Africa were. And here it is again. Pseudo-scientific racist justifications. So those are your 4 questions for review. After this, you should get started on preparing for your essay test. If you have access to it on Canvas, you can get it right here.